What up guys, Gozen here for AnimeUproar, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most mysterious characters in Attack on Titan. We're going to be talking about the boy wonder, Zeke Jaeger himself. In the Attack on Titan guidebook, Zeke got an off-the-charts score in intelligence, an 11 out of 10, making him the smartest character in the series along with Hanji Zoe. Today, we are going to pick the brains of this brainiac and explore the philosophy of Zeke Jaeger. If you want to see more Attack on Titan videos on this channel, make sure to Warhammer smash that like button to let me know and suggest future Attack on Titan videos you'd love to see in the comments. If you haven't, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any new videos. There will be manga spoilers in this video, so in the paraphrased words of Morpheus, this is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends, you click off the video, and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. First things first, what do I mean when I say philosophy? Well, simply put, philosophy is a way of thinking about the world, the universe, and society. Although we may all live in the same objective world, our view of that same world is framed by our subjective ideology or belief system. For instance, my cousin and I experience rain differently. I don't like when it's raining because it means I can't run outside, I'll get wet if I go out anywhere, and I simply feel better when the sun is shining and the skies are clear and calm. However, my cousin loves the rain. She gets excited when it starts raining and prefers it to a bright shiny day. Are either of us objectively right in our response? Is rain objectively good or objectively bad? The truth is rain, it's just doing its thing, it's neutral, but depending on the person or context, we turn into a negative or positive thing. Different perspectives mean that we will view the same events or the same world differently. We see this in Attack on Titan all the time. Attack on Titan is not just a battle between Titan shifters, it's a battle between conflicting ideologies. Different characters are fighting because they have clashing philosophies. They each believe that their way of viewing the world is the right way, or at least right enough for them to fight for it. And whoever wins will proceed to shape the world according to their philosophy. At first, the worldview within the walls was a pretty simple one. Humanity had to defeat these evil villains. Slowly but surely, this worldview was complicated. They figured out that some humans could turn into Titans, which complicated the distinction between us, humanity, and them, the Titans. Then, this was further complicated by the fact that some Survey Corps members, like Annie, Reiner, and Bertolt, actually appeared to side with the Titans rather than with humanity. The basement was my favorite part in the whole series because of the huge worldview shift that took place after our main characters discovered the truth of what's happening beyond the walls. For the longest time, we thought that all that was left of humanity was inside the walls and the villains were the Titans. However, in the basement, we find out that there is human life beyond the island and the people there are even more technologically advanced. The people of Marley appear to be enemies, while the Titans turn out to have been humans, specifically fellow Eldians, who were usually unjustly punished and forced to become Titans against their will. However, it's not even as simple as saying the Marleyans and their warriors like Reiner and Bertolt are the villains. We get to see the Marleyan perspective, and we find out that the Eldian warriors were brainwashed from a young age to believe the island-dwelling Eldians are devils who must be killed so that the good Eldians will stop being hated. Not only that, but the families of the warriors are pretty much hostages that the Marleyan government can use to keep the warriors from turning on them. So the Marleyans who use the Eldians seem like the bad ones, except we find out that they used to be oppressed by the Eldians, and that there are Marleyans who actually care about Marleyan Eldians. Every time we think we have a villain in this series, Isayama shows us their perspective, and in doing so, refuses to give us a black and white story about good guys versus bad guys. Now let's see if this can be applied to the Beast Titan, the monster who killed countless people and even appeared to take joy in it. During the Battle of Shiganshina District, he is killing people by throwing rocks at them, and he treats it like a game. He acts like he's just playing baseball and says he's going for a perfect game. He also says the first pitch is just a warm-up. For him, an attack that killed a number of human beings was not framed as a brutal act of murder, but as a warm-up for a game he's playing. Could Isayama possibly make us empathize with such a seemingly evil, cold-blooded character? To answer this question, we have to turn to the life of Zeke Jaeger, to the boy who would one day become the Beast Titan and slaughter all of these people. Zeke was born to Grisha Jaeger in the Liberio internment zone. Outside of the wall in Marley, the Eldians are discriminated against because of their ability to turn into Titans, something only Eldians can do. A lot of people feel justified in treating Eldians cruelly, or even killing Eldian children because they don't view them as fellow humans but as monsters. An officer fed Grisha's sister to dogs when they were both still children, and he got away with it, which paints a picture of just how incredibly unfair the treatment of Eldians can be. Because of his identity, surroundings, and experiences, Grisha developed a hatred for Marleyans and a desire to restore the Eldian Empire. He wanted Eldians to rule over other peoples like they once did. He worked with others who felt the same way, and the group was fittingly called the Eldian Restorationists. Then he married Dina Fritz, an Eldian with royal blood, and had Zeke. To oversimplify the matter, Grisha was a bad father to Zeke. He didn't treat him like a human, like an individual who should have the freedom to choose his own path. From the beginning, he viewed him as a chosen one, who will one day lead the Eldians to victory. When he found out about the warrior program, where Marleyans were looking for child Eldians to use as Titan weapons, Grisha was quick to volunteer his young son. Even though he was so young, Grisha put the pressure of being a double agent and Eldia's only hope on Zeke's shoulders. But before that, child Zeke regularly experienced discrimination for being Eldian. We get a flashback of Grisha, Dina, and Zeke looking off a roof where they have permission to be, and a Marleyan worker splashes them with water. He says he's ridding the place of its filth, and he thinks that Eldians are demons who taint everything. He calls them descendants of the devil, who massacre every last thing they could, and then he claims it's only natural for them to be exterminated. He looks at Zeke and is disgusted that Grisha and Dina would give birth to another devil. Zeke is crying because of the verbal abuse. Remember, he's experiencing this at a very vulnerable and impressionable age, and this is just one example of what he must have been experiencing throughout childhood. Still, Zeke was the opposite of Eren. Where Eren was committed to killing all Titans at a young age, Zeke actually lacked conviction. While other children in the program worked desperately to become Marleyan warriors, Zeke didn't have the same drive and lagged behind the others. We see that he was regularly neglected by his parents. Grisha's father told his son and Dina that Zeke missed them, but they kept on prioritizing the Eldian Restorationists to their own son. Zeke's intelligence was clear from a young age. He was able to learn about the Eldian Restorationist version of history, but pretend that he was being taught the Marleyan version of history. He even kept the secret from his grandparents, telling them that Grisha was teaching him the same things they learned at school. Even though it was clear that Zeke was unhappy with the warrior program and didn't really want to be a warrior except to get the praise of his parents, he continued to tell his grandparents that he did want to become a warrior. During the time period where he was constantly getting singled out at the warrior training for having no drive, he ran into the user of the Beast Titan, Tom Xavier. Tom was like the father Zeke never had, one who actually paid attention to him, his feelings, and was willing to play catch with him. He didn't just view Zeke as a tool like his father did, he viewed him as a child with his own feelings who he really cared about. The scene of them playing catch was juxtaposed to the next few panels, where an excited Zeke rushes home to talk to his father only to get shut down and ignored again because Grisha had Eldian Restorationist business. At this point, the Eldian Restorationists decide that their only chance is to get Zeke to inherit the Beast Titan and to partake in the mission to take back the founding Titan. Grisha left a crying Zeke to live full-time with the Marleyan military so he'd have a better chance of becoming a warrior. Again, he put ridiculous pressure on his son, never thinking about or caring to notice how he may be feeling or what he really wants. Zeke even tried before to talk his parents out of the Eldian Restorationist business. He told them to stop doing dangerous things or they'll all be sent to Paradise Island and turned into Titans. Grisha slams the table, which scares Zeke, bringing tears to his eyes. He claims that his sister Faye, Zeke's aunt, died because of how crazy the world is, and and that they have to fight so that no one ever meets her fate again. While Zeke mentions his grandfather's view, which is that Faye died because they went outside the walls that day, because they broke the rules. Again, we have another case of clashing philosophies. The same event, Faye's death, is framed in two ways. One is that the unfairness of the world needs to be fixed through any means necessary, so that this doesn't happen again. While another is that Eldians need to find whatever happiness they can while living within the walls and not breaking the rules. Both Grisha and his father don't want something like what happened to Faye to happen again, but they have radically different ways of making that happen. Zeke seems to side with his grandfather, but still goes through with the warrior program against his own will for his parents. When Zeke overhears that the Marleyan officials are closing in on the Eldian restorationists, he has resigned himself to him and his family getting caught and being punished. It is Tom, the father figure Grisha could never be, who tells Zeke to accuse his parents. He tells him it's his only option. That way, he can even save his grandparents. Otherwise, they'd all die, even the grandparents who were adamantly against rocking the boat. Zeke says he could never do that, but Tom points out how awful his parents were to him. They use Zeke for their own reckless plan, putting a 7-year-old boy and his grandparents in mortal danger. Tom convinces him that his parents weren't concerned for him and that they never loved him. And finally, a 7-year-old Zeke ends up selling out his parents. Later, after everything he's experienced, an older Zeke wonders if it would be best if the Founding Titan, which can rewrite the bodies of subjects of Ymir, could be used to make it so that those same subjects could no longer have children. That way, every Titan would be gone in 100 years, and the world wouldn't have to live in fear of Titans or suffer at their hands. And he says above all, if we'd never been born in the first place, we never would have had to suffer. He becomes even more committed to this plan when he hears Tom's story about how his wife found out that he was an Eldian and then proceeded to slit her own throat and that of his child. He became a warrior because he wanted to kill himself, to end the suffering. Despite the fun he's had with Zeke, he still thinks it would have been better if he was never born. Then Zeke promises to inherit the Beast Titan, retake the Founder, and free the world from the fear of the Titans and the Eldians from their suffering. For Zeke, Eldia's euthanization is the most just and merciful goal. So now we have a better idea of how he could kill all those soldiers during the Battle of Shiganshina. He was unfazed because in the framework of his philosophy, he was freeing them of suffering. And not only that, but their deaths would mean that he could free many more lives from suffering. Zeke believes that life is a curse for Eldians. Life is bad, full of suffering, and the best thing to do is to help the most amount of people possible by making sure that Eldians and subsequently Titans are phased out of this world. Levi hates Zeke because his philosophy is that life is worth living despite the suffering. We'll talk about an exception later, but in general, Levi wants to survive and to help his friends survive as long as possible. This is why he views Zeke's actions as bad, evil, and any other negative term you can throw at them. However, as Zeke mentions, in his view, he saved the people he killed and the lives of the children they would birth from this cruel world. Every person he quickly killed with his rocks, at that moment, he freed them of all the suffering they would have had to experience during the remainder of their lives. For Zeke, the good in life, at least for Eldians, is extremely outweighed by the bad, making death more appealing than life. And this is what good writers do. They don't give us a black and white story where a guy who is a villain is also clearly a villain even in his own mind. No, Isayama shows us how, from the villain's own view, he is a hero, going after his own version of the good, going after his own version of justice. At first, it might be easy to side with Levi, but remember that even Levi felt a similar kind of way at one point, when his best friend Erwin was on the brink of death, and he could have potentially saved him by giving him the Titan Serum and having him eat the Colossal Titan. He decided not to because letting him die was freeing him from hell. He decided to let him rest rather than call him back into the cruel world of Attack on Titan. So, although they are on different sides, it's not like Levi's never been able to see things from Zeke's perspective. From the perspective that it could potentially be better to die than to go on living in this cruel world. So let me know what you think of Zeke. Can you empathize with the character? Do you think he's a good villain, or would you not even classify him as a villain? If you know anything about me, you'll know that I completely disagree with Zeke. I like to think of myself as an optimist. I believe that although suffering is inevitable in life, we can always find enough meaning and happiness to make it worth living if we don't give up. Obviously, I haven't personally experienced as much suffering as a lot of the characters in Attack on Titan, but I still find myself siding with characters who, although they've suffered, keep moving forward, striving to create a better future on Earth for themselves and their loved ones. If we consider Eldians to be their own race, we can say that Zeke has internalized the racism that is targeted towards the Eldians. He has adopted the view of that man who splashed water on him and his family so long ago. Zeke's train of thought is something like this. Eldians become Titans, Titans are bad and kill a lot of people fear Titans, people hate Eldians, people treat Eldians cruelly, no one is happy, Eldians should cease to exist. My major issue with Zeke's philosophy, besides it being a pessimistic one, is that Zeke feels justified in deciding what's best for other people. Just as Grisha unfairly tried to force Zeke to adopt his philosophy, Zeke is doing the same. Grisha should have recognized Zeke's individuality, respected his feelings, and given him the freedom to choose his own path. In the same way, Zeke should recognize the individuality of other Eldians, respect their own feelings, and give them the freedom to choose what they want. Who is Zeke to decide that it is merciful to kill an Eldian? Shouldn't that Eldian be able to decide for him or herself if they want to live, if life has worth, if the good outweighs the bad for them? I have major issues with the fact that Zeke forces his own philosophy on others, stripping them of their freedom to choose. Besides, why does Zeke think that the technological innovations that are supposed to surpass the power of the Titans soon won't make life just as bad as the Titans made it, or worse? In my view, it is naive to think that getting rid of Eldians and Titans will solve everyone else's problems. Sure, they may live in fear of Titans now, but even after the Titans are gone, they will have to live in fear of weapons of mass destruction. Despite my issues with what appears to be Zeke's philosophy at this point, I think that Isayama does a good job of illustrating how the world is not black and white. Everyone is fighting in Attack on Titan for what they believe is good, and what that good looks like is often influenced by their own tragic backstories. In my view, Zeke's actions are completely unjustified. Nevertheless, Isayama does a good job of humanizing the Beast Titan user, who seemed like the incarnation of pure evil when he was introduced earlier in the series. But let me know what you think. Do you think that Eren could ever truly adopt this kind of philosophy, especially since he and the Attack Titan seem to always value freedom above all else? And that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to go beast mode on that like button. If you haven't, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any new Attack on Titan videos. Remember to follow us on Instagram for more content and crucial Attack on Titan updates. Thank you so much for your support, and until next time, see you, Space Cowboys.